Dr. Suhas. Vinny. Hello?
Yeah.
Please come on. Come. Digital technology towards self-reliant India. It is an international webinar series organized by Soviet Institute of Engineering and Technology, Meerut, a NAC accredited deemed to be university. We have initiated this international webinar series under the Atmanirbhar Bharat program to promote open source digital technologies. So far, we have organized 2 such discussions. One is on open technology to provision simple and economical IT infrastructure, held on 12th September 2020, addressed by Dr. B. Balasubramanian, former Deputy Director General, National Informatics Center, and Head NIC Open Technology Center, Chennai. The second one was addressed by Dr. B.K. Mishra on 18th September 2020 on a roadmap for students using free and open source software and reaching goals of Atmanirbhar Bharat. In this webinar series, we will be concentrating on needed open infrastructure, open source software, and open hardware to promote research, education, and development in open source technology in 4,500 engineering colleges and other related institutions who teach computer science and computer engineering in the country. Our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, he has recently given his vision for Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India, which is rested on 5 pillars: economy, infrastructure, systems, vibrant demography, and demand. Out of these 5 pillars, infrastructure and systems are essential for making economy a quantum jump and vibrant demography to use it and to fulfill the demand through demand and supply chain. This also will facilitate vocal for local to make it global. In today's webinar, we have a distinguished scientist, Dr. HK Suhas. He is former Deputy Director General, National Informatics Center, and former member of E-Committee, Courts and Computerization of Supreme Court of India, New Delhi. Dr. Suhas is the former Deputy Director General, Department of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India, and the former member of E-Committee, Courts Computerization of Supreme Court of India, New Delhi. He served as a scientist in different levels in NIC from 1984 to 2008 and retired as its Deputy Director General in June 2008. From July 2008 to January 2009, as a consultant, National Informatics Center Services Incorporated, New Delhi, and from February 2009 to June 2015 as a member technical e-committee e-course project. Dr. Suhas has rich experience and expertise in product development and continuous product development, build, test, release procedures, and working with the development teams in India, US, Germany. And he has got very wide expertise in the use of open source solutions and experience and expertise in setting up facilities in information technology, software training, and hosting. While serving in NIC, Dr. Suhas coordinated a Norwegian-funded project on technology transfer involving CSAM software, super element structural analysis modules, involved in the finite element analysis of offshore structures in Bombay High and other non-offshore structures like alumina carrying wagon, bridges, and etc. And coordinated a Norwegian-funded project on technology transfer involving ICEM, DDN, CAD, CAM, and computer-aided engineering solutions. His contributions in the design and development of CollabCAD and Collab DDS, that is collaborative digital diagnosis system using open source, were phenomenal. Dr. Suhas has authored a book, From Quality to Virtual Corporation, published by Narosa Publishers, and also published papers in the leading international journals and international national conferences. It also evaluated PhD thesis and MTech thesis to his credit. He has also chaired conferences and many technical committees and also members of various government technical committees. Dr. HS Suarez received his PhD from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras in 1982, in Masters in Engineering in Mechanical Engineering from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore in 1971, and Bachelor's in Engineering in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Mysore in 1969. Dr. Suhas has rich experience in driving operations across the career with proven success in ensuring optimum results. Today, Dr. Suhas will talk on a synopsis that as to how to attempt, how to make use of the Make in India initiative and also their readily available open standards, that is a step standard of ISO, and open source based computer aided design, computer aided manufacturing, and computer aided engineering solutions, which is available as a single product CollabCAD developed by National Informatics Center, a premier institution of Government of India, established in 1977. And he will also talk on as to how to create industrial Internet of Things, this is IIoT, for the MSMEs using CollabCAD. As a part of Make in India initiative, NIC under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology can make CollabCAD available to MSMEs at a very nominal charge compared to commercial solutions. It is time now that National Productivity Council to take up at the ministry level, that is Ministry of MSME and MATI. This gives an opportunity to initiate a startup as a support structure under Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Application, CIDSA, of the Soviet University to support MSME. This will require initial training sessions on application support for the use of CAD, CAM, and computer-aided engineering solutions. This computer-aided engineering solution is integrated with CollabCAD, which comprises of ERP, MRP, and inventory control solutions. There are many matured computer-aided engineering solutions available as open source. Their customization to suit a particular industry requirements is based mainly on XML, JSON, and GUI changes and not based on source code level modifications. Computer-aided engineering solutions covering ERP, inventory control, etc. will require certain software development to customize solutions to different MSMEs. These computer-aided engineering solutions has been used by a group of MSMEs that supply critical components to various scientific and research organizations in India. Industrial IoT is one of the key technology domains in Industrial Revolution 4.0, impacting all vertical sectors like manufacturing, agriculture, transport, and movement of goods, health, construction, etc. Open source software-based industrial IoT will accelerate the growth of India towards self-reliant Atmanirbhar Bharat. A successful product results from a partner-driven ecosystem approach, just like with open source software. Similarly, from the standards to market share, the IoT space is fragmented, and so a unified consortia type treatment could help the entire IoT value chain better serve the vast addressable market in India. This open source digital technologies towards self-reliant India Atmanirbhar Bharat webinar series is sponsored by Soviet University, which is deemed to be university, and in collaboration with Co-Learning, which is an initiative of Soviet University, and is also supported by Indian Education Network and FESE. I will now request Dr. HS Suarez to give his talk on open source software and industrial Internet of Things. Dr. Suhas.
Thank you, Prof. Excellent introduction and an opportunity to present the subject here. Now, the challenge that the MSMEs would face refer to the huge proprietary interfaces and proprietary solutions that are available in the market. And this would create a major obstacle and a hurdle for the MSMEs. And therefore, we need to have a solution in the form of standardization, and this can come from the open source solutions. Further, there is no license fee for the open source solutions, and they are secure. There is no difficulty in maintaining them because these open source solutions come from eminent and very well-known organizations like the Open Connectivity Foundations, Apache Foundations, etc. So it is not just some code that is written by somebody and then it is made public or published. So what we are going to see here are a set of solutions that are coming from very well-known sources. It is Java, Java 3D, Indria for the finite element, which is a French mathematical institute. So we have picked up all well-known solutions and then we have built this CollabCAD solution, which would be of a great help to the MSMEs. The most important thing is we need to break down the silos so that the data becomes easily accessible and there won't be any difficulty with the data flow. So we need to adopt a data-centric design, and the device management, because we are now talking in terms of moving from a conventional manufacturing mechanism to the industry IoT, Internet of Things. So here everything is controlled through systems. Since we are going to have a large number of things which are like the controllers, the various transfer operations, the robotics, etc. So the power efficiency or the consumption of electricity becomes extremely important. We need to have an efficient design of the hardware, the interfaces, without which we will create different kind of a problem for the MSMEs and for the industry. We need to have a common development environment because that is the key to the integration. If we end up with different silos which do not talk to each other, then you have a serious problems in communicating across the applications. So we have to have a software development ecosystem, and that should be on standard like an ISO standard, step standard, and the algorithms and the analytics need to be insulated from the hardware and the operating system dependencies. Now, this would require a enhancement in the expertise. This is where Shobit University and the excellence centers or the centers of excellence which they plan to build would come in, because we need to have a mechanism whereby these areas of study are made part of the regular curriculum, without which it would create a breakdown in the system, because the students come out without any knowledge about the IIoT or the open source technology, and therefore we have a demand for certain areas of specialization which are not met by the educational institution, and therefore the initiative taken by Shobit University in creating the centers of excellence and making it available to the students, because the students are willing to learn. Because when a student comes out of the university, he can be an employee or an employer. He can also start up a system or a industry of his own. Maybe a small one, it makes no difference. That is why we are focusing on the MSMEs and resolving the problems, the infrastructure problem, the solution problems, which would have to be addressed if we have to make a major dent in the economy. Otherwise, we will be dragging, and our production systems, manufacturing systems would remain old, and it will become sooner than later outdated. Now, the most important thing is, before we move into the Internet of Things, we need to understand that not only the software, even the hardware, the networking, etc., they also need to have a certain standards, international standards, where there is no tweaking. Invariably, the industries do tweak these standards to create a vendor locking for themselves. It is their business model. So we need to move away from such business models and make sure that we create an ecosystem for the open technology, the open hardware, the open connectivity, and the open source solutions. The same is true with the operating system. It is not just the application solutions, but even the operating system that drives this entire IIoT. It ought to be an open source solutions, and there are solutions that are available. It is not that we have to grope in the dark or we are stuck with a proprietary solution. There are solutions that are available. Ubuntu is one. Ubuntu has a good base, and National Informatics Center, which has set up the Open Technology Group, has a great experience in both the 32-bit as well as 64-bit Unix operating system. The Ubuntu Unix operating system. The Ubuntu has a system as a Linux system. It has an IoT also, that is Internet of Things. It can take up the various drivings and the human interfaces, the human machine interfaces, man-machine interface, the open interface terminal, etc. These would become very important when we go to the shop floor. So Ubuntu has the ability to drive all these issues. We have a system which has been released under Ubuntu. So, and since Ubuntu as a solution has a support mechanism from National Informatics Center Open Technology Group, it would be wonderful to have Ubuntu Linux on the machines, for driving the various operations, and open source solutions for the solutions related to the CAD CAMs, the CAE, and the supply chain management, the ERP, the MRP, etc. Now, the open source and IoT development, we need to have a ecosystem that needs to, because the solution that we have from CAD CAM to the ERP and the MRP, manufacturing resource planning and the enterprise resource planning, the criticality of this application is the smooth transfer or the smooth movement or a flawless movement of data across these various applications. And finally, the numerical control code needs to go. If there is any hiccup in any of this communication, then you have a serious problem. And therefore, adhering to the open standards becomes extremely important in this ecosystem approach, without which we will have serious problems. And it is good that a university has taken the initiative, not an industry, because the university is the place where the students can be taught, the young minds can be taught, and they can get the necessary expertise to follow the standards, not deviate from the standards, because it is always a very fascinating thing to tweak a system, tweak a standard. That gives a false sense of contribution. Yes, I'm holding something. Now that becomes a proprietary area. So that will again derail the whole system. Therefore, it's necessary that from an educational institute, the movement of an open source and IoT product development gets initiated, because that's always the safest bet. So we have a number of open source foundations, like the Linux Foundation, the Open Connectivity Foundation, Apache Foundation. They are all dedicated to maintaining these standards. Therefore, we need to hold on to these. So we have the end-to-end digital engineering, from the CAD/CAM, CAE to ERP, MRP, and the computer-aided production engineering. So we need to have all this put together and then train the students and induct this into the MS. Fortunately, National Informatics Center, a premier institution in the information technology area, has an open source and open standards based solution for all this. They have the expertise in advising and hand-holding and managing the Ubuntu operating system, and they also have the expertise in handling and in building and in sustaining the open source, open standards based CAD/CAM, CAE, ERP, MRP, CAPE solutions. So these must be made available to the industry. So, having said all this, we now come to the two clear areas, namely, one is the manufacturing part, another is the design part. The great difficulty which the Indian industry is facing is the ecosystem of supply management. That is, it becomes necessary, which is very unfortunate, that the industry will have to store the raw stock, which becomes a dead investment. This IoT open standards is one thing, but when we go into the implementation issues, the ecosystem of the industry needs to be straightened out. We have serious problems there. So how do we set that right? The problem is we need to have a mechanism whereby we get into what is often called the lean manufacturing or the just-in-time manufacturing. The design, that is the CAD/CAM design, the material and geometric and electromagnetism, etc., the analysis part of it, they're all fine. They create a product. But when you want to manufacture the product, the industry must become efficient and not end up creating a stock of raw materials because you don't get the raw materials at the right time. So there is an ecosystem problem there. And then you keep manufacturing it and you have a stock of finished product, which is not being pushed in to the market, or the market is not capable of picking it up. In both cases, we have dead investment, and this brings the industry down. This pulls the industry down. This makes it inefficient or economically not viable. This is where the problem is. So we need to address this fundamental issue. The most important thing is we need to drive from the education and from the research group. So Shobit University can have institutional tie-ups, create those institutional tie-ups. It can lead in creating with other similar thinking who have the same kind of a feeling that there is a need for a standardized way of doing things, not any tweaking, not any proprietary sense, and make sure that the IoT-based manufacture starts by bringing down the unfortunate stocking of inventory, both the raw stock as well as the finished product, which weighs the Indian industry down. So the attempt is this, and for this, the most critical thing is training the minds of the young students. So it is good that we have made a beginning with the Shobit University setting up the centers of excellence. The next thing that comes up is we also need to tweak the Government of India tendering policy. MSMEs must get certain special status. They must get some special identification, and the normal rule that applies to the industrial tendering should be waived for the MSMEs. This is one important thing that needs to be done, because we are talking of changing the very basic manufacturing ecosystem. And if we have to succeed, then these MSMEs which make this attempt by inducting this technology must also have a helping hand from the government to pick up their products. They can't be asked to compete with the major industry in the market. That's an unfair competition. Therefore, we need to have a mechanism whereby the MSMEs are given some kind of a support, either from a localized one or from the central government and from the state government. It's across the board. There is a need to have a relook at the 3-year turnover and the client base and all those things. We need to have a different kind of an approach to support the. It is almost like doing the hand holding for the Indian MSMEs. Otherwise, we are going to fall on our faces. It's not going to be easy. The next thing is, every industry has some inventory management solution and an associated e-commerce. That is, I place an order for the hardware or the raw stock. The raw stock comes and I make the payment. Now, if we are trying to create an ecosystem, this is not sufficient. This needs to change. That is, I have an industry, I have a shop floor with the machines, we have manpower to man them. I have a manufacturing facility for product A, B, C, D, and I hope to get certain orders, and I should not end up stocking the raw material. As and when the order is released, I should be able to go to the market, pick up the necessary raw material, and it comes and then it goes on to the shop floor for manufacturing. This is referred to as just in time. We need to have a mechanism whereby we must have a ecosystem which links not only the MSMEs but also the supplier. There is a supply chain management needs to be relooked into, and they need to be fine-tuned. And it is not my business to sell and my job is over. No. The question that comes up is, we need to look at the well-being of the entire industrial cycle, industrial manufacturing cycle, industrial supply chain cycle, which supports and helps in the manufacture of an item. Therefore, what we need is not an individually manufacturing case where we take an individual factory and apply their solutions. But what we need to do is we need to keep the ecosystem in view, the supply chain management in view, the customer relations management in view, and then plan the whole thing. Therefore, the most important thing here becomes the supply chain management, customer relations management. We have in CollabCAD, as a part of the CollabCAD, we have integrated Apache Foundation's OFBIS, which takes into account the ERP, the MRP, the supply chain management, and the customer relations management, and also the e-commerce. Now, the issue that comes up is every industry, every MSME has their own way of working. They have a different thought process, they have implemented it, and now we need to change them. Therefore, the best solution is we need to make a standard implementation of OFBIS and link it with the hardware, link it with the raw stock supplier, and link it with the marketing people who pick the finished product and sell it in the market. Therefore, it is this total ecosystem of supply and the customer relations management that we need to address. Therefore, the first attempt that we need to do is to take this in view, namely the ecosystem in view, and then start planning. The rest of it, namely the operating system, the Ubuntu, the Wi-Fi connectivity, the NC machines, computers, etc., controllers, they all will fall in place. That's not a major problem there. The biggest problem is to get the ecosystem, the marketing ecosystem, and of the product and of the raw material. We need to have a system where this gets addressed and is taken into the right way. Therefore, we suggest that since Apache Foundation's OFBIS has been integrated with CollabCAD, start from implementing the OFBIS, the Apache Foundation. The first attempt should be the OFBIS implementation. The rest of it will follow. It requires certain different kinds of specialization. OFBIS requires certain specialization. The NC machine, NC controllers, etc., that requires a different kind of expertise. And the CAD or the computer-aided design requires other kind of a finite element analysis background and other backgrounds. Therefore, the focus being the ecosystem, we need to have an open source solution which would look at the ecosystem only and then straightens it out so that in the existing scenario, can we reduce the dead investment which weighs the MSMEs down? Cut down the dead investment. Is it feasible to do it? The answer is yes. It has been done by Japanese, it has been done by the Germans. They did not go for IIoT to begin with. They established the flexible manufacturing system. So the Japanese and the German industries implemented just-in-time practice and then went in for the IIoT. We must help the Indian industry, the flexible manufacturing system. Now, what is flexible manufacturing system? It is for example, it is most suited for the mid-variety and mid-volume production range. And that is what we are addressing. MSME is that. The biggest problem is the MSMEs have a price markup limitation because they manufacture certain smaller things. Therefore, there is no avenue for marking up the price and then saying, look, we have got a dead investment and therefore I need to recover the money. No, that doesn't happen. Therefore, the best solution is cut down the inventory, cut down the finished product inventory, both. But then how do we do that? Thinking of cutting down the inventory is easy, doable. But how do you cut down the inventory of an unsold finished product? Because that is dependent on what the market is driving. If the market does not pick up those products, well, it will lie there. Then how will the MSME address this issue? Now the issue, sir, is this. If we are taking the shop floor into account for the time being, I have an industry, a small, medium industry, and my shop floor has certain machine tools. Many of them may have NC controllers, many of them may not have NC controllers. Fair enough. Using that setup, those definite machines, some may be lathes, some may be milling machines, some may be planing machines, some may be assembly unit there. I can manufacture not just one. I can plan to manufacture maybe about 6, 7, 8 products, which means Depending on what demand is there in the market, I produce it. To put this in a slightly different way, manufacturing becomes a service. Depending on what service is being expected from the market, I turn out my product. Therefore, I neither have a dead stock of raw material, nor do I have a dead stock of finished product, one particular finished product. I have fine-tuned my manufacturing facility, albeit a very small one, fair enough. And the people are trained so that depending on what is the demand, I keep manufacturing only those and then push it out. Therefore, the idle time of the machine is down, idle time of the manpower is down, the dead investment on the raw material is down, and the dead investment on the stock of unsold finished product is down. And this is the start of a revolution. And this will then facilitate into moving into IIoT. So the flexible manufacturing system is temporary staging area or temporary storage area. Please understand it is just a temporary. The material comes and then it goes onto the shop floor. There is no permanent place to stock the material. Second, maybe we may not get the material for making that. So you stock it. That's thought process needs to be exercised. It should be removed from the mind. We need to have a mechanism whereby as the order comes in, I place an order for the raw material, and the raw material comes in, goes into the temporary storage area and into the manufacturing bay on the shop floor, feeding the whole thing. This is the start of flexible manufacturing system. So this is the we are now moving into the usage of robotics, loading mechanisms. So once we reach this stage, these are the things: controller, the robotics, the transfer lines. It is these that need to be controlled, the Wi-Fi and all that. So the IoT network, the IoT network, this is how it would look like. You have the Wi-Fi, the optical fiber networks, but all of them need to be open connectivity, open standards. No proprietary connectivity should be allowed. So the IoT devices, these are all the things, and not difficult to achieve, but the most difficult thing to achieve to begin with is the flexible manufacturing system. Therefore, we need to have the open source solution covering various practices like the ERP, MRP, supply chain management, customer relations management, and e-commerce. We have implemented this in some of those MSMEs, which supply some critical components to the research industries in India, research organizations in India. Therefore, we can implement the ERP, MRP, SCM, CRM, e-commerce as a de facto standard into the MSMEs. Therefore, this can be made easily available to the MSMEs, and the MSME ministry, maybe the National Productivity Council. The most important thing is not the solution exists, but we need to have a mechanism whereby the training, in many cases, it may be retraining, because the kind of expertise that is required to handle these would be different. You need to upscale the skill set. There has already been an initiative by the government for upscaling or skilling of the manpower. So we need to have that. And the best thing is what Shobit University has done, set up centers of excellence so that the students have a mechanism of tapping the door and get the information, because they also need to know from where they can get the information for making this kind of a transition into open standards based solutions and clean up the manufacturing processes and the supply chain management. It's a massive effort, but not difficult. People have done it, and we have the tools for it, and they are all open source, and NIC can help in getting the initial trainers. So we can train the trainers like the Shobit University Centers of Excellence, and they can also go and have a tie-up, back-to-back tie-up with other educational institutions, CDAC, IIC, IIT, etc. And we can do it, including the National Productivity Council. This is the digital society. You have a school, city A, city B, city C, and all of them are networked, and you have a production and a training mechanism. Even the training can be online. It is absolutely no problem. So this is what we are trying to achieve, and this is what Professor Moni keeps talking of, a digital society or the data-centric approach. Now, the implementation details is the first and the foremost activity MSME must be create an ecosystem for lean manufacturing. For that, we need to have the supply chain OFBIS implementation into both the MSMEs and also their counterparts who supply the raw material, because they also have an inventory control. Everybody has an inventory control, some inventory control to account for what they have and account for what has been sold and the e-commerce part of it. So we need to take it away and put a seamless, open standards based OFBIS in place. And this is what the start or the beginning will have to be. The raw stock is received depending on the size of the order. The MSME does not become dependent on the market demand. So you need to have a mechanism whereby with the prevailing set of machine tools, they should think of manufacturing multiple types of products which can be pushed into the market, so that you don't end up having machine tools which are idling because you have no order for that one particular. So the days of having one single product are gone. We need to finish it and make it manufacturing as a service. This market demands certain things, you make it and send it. So it's a service. Manufacturing is no more a proprietary product, taking pride in saying, I manufacture only this. No, that doesn't help. those days are gone. Therefore, you need to have a mechanism whereby the manufacturing becomes a service, and using your existing machine tools on the shop floor, plan additional products that can be turned out so that there is no idle time either for the machines or for the manpower. So the MSME will flourish and thrive, and then you can then change over to the NC machines, etc. Then the controllers come in and they become the things, and then the networking starts. You can have the Wi-Fi networks, you can have connected networks. There's absolutely no problem. But the first and the foremost thing is to make sure you have a lean or a flexible manufacturing system with no stockpile of either the raw material or the finished product. So there is a small change in the thought process, and the student community is the ideal community where this can be put down, and then they can pick it up, and then everybody will flourish. There is no reason. And I don't know whether I should make this statement. The China being the global manufacturing factory is gone, though that gone. So I think now this is a wonderful time, a godsend time for us to make this revolutionary step. And I congratulate Shobit University for taking this initiative, and the time is perfect. We need to take this further and then do it, and the government must support it, because invariably what happens is we keep faltering. We take something, but then we find that the support is not there. So then it peters out. So we shouldn't allow such a thing to happen. So my humble submission is the policymakers and the big bosses need to sit and listen and then do this so that you take the place of China, because now people are withdrawing from China. Let them come here and we will provide all these things. So the CAD group of National Informatics Center can make CollabCAD available to MSMEs. CollabCAD is integrated with the design, manufacturing. It has virtual reality. You can do the walkthroughs, etc. on the design. It also has the OFBs, customized open source ERP, etc. Therefore, when we say put CollabCAD, please understand, let us not worry too much about the finite element analysis, etc., because that unfortunately becomes more mathematical. So let us not get bogged down by that. Let us pick the low-lying fruits, and the low-lying fruits are the ERP. So the moment you do this, straighten out the ERP, MRP, supply chain management, customer relations management, e-commerce, everywhere, across the board, a standard implementation with some small fine-tuning here and there in the GUI. Fair enough. There is no big issue. This will make the industry profitable, and we can possibly take a lead in completely replacing the other countries. So this is an ideal situation where we are in today, and we should capitalize on that. In the same way, NIC, Open Technology Group, can provide the trainers in Shobit University Centers of Excellence information and knowledge about Ubuntu. When we talk of this open source, we are not talking about writing code. No. The first thing is take it and implement it and train them how to use it. At a later date, if you want, let us also contribute to the open source. That's a different issue. So we are now talking, when we are talking of Apache Foundation's OFBs and SCM, we are not talking in terms of adding code. We may have, as Professor Moni in the introductory lecture said, small changes in the GUI. It might become necessary because a pharmaceutical company, a manufacturing company related to the pumps and the automobile industry, they may require certain different GUIs. Fair enough. So let us look at only that, not in the contribution of the code. Let us not worry about that. So we need to have a mechanism whereby the students are made aware of these things, and then it will flourish, because it is the students who become employers or employees. There are always different levels of people who have a different level of funding availability. So therefore, as a part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission, and also as a part of Make in India initiative, it is necessary to create infrastructure support for training the engineering students as part of the curriculum. Open source technology should be made the de facto. When subjects are taught, introduce them to this as a lab, and they should come and keep practicing it and then understand how the whole thing works, how the data flows, and that's what it is. The students after graduation can either become employees or employers. And there is a need for the government, as part of the economic stimulus, to subsidize the training mechanism for these students. It's necessary that initially you need to not only this, but also possibly give Ubuntu to the MSCs. MSMEs need to get the support, because you can't say you pay through the nose and buy the CollabCAD and go, we know. That's not the aim. This cannot function as a business model. This will have to be a socio-economic model. Therefore, we need to have a mechanism whereby the universities like Shobit University also need to get a financial support, because the centers of excellence need to have certain manpower. It can't become a post office. They have to have people who specialize in some of these areas so that they do the hand holding. Either they conduct regular courses in different cities or at the university itself, or they can be on online. Fair enough. As the demand comes in, they provide it. Now for that, there is certain costs involved, and therefore the government must fund these activities. Thank you very much for your patience, and if any questions are there, you are most welcome.
Thank you, Professor Suhas. It's a very interesting and professional talk. And before we, get into further discussion, there are two questions have come from one Mr. Amarendra Singh and Mr. Keshav Tripathi. Both the questions are the same. One Mr. Amarendra Singh tells about that we are concerned about security, and Mr. Keshav Tripathi also talks about that the embedding security is more important. So both of them are talking about open source tools and security issues.
Yes.
Dr. Suhas.
It is a very valid question.
And Mr.
Security. And unfortunately, the marketing people of the proprietary solutions always raise this issue of support, the stability of the solution, and the security breaches, etc., etc. But please bear in mind that the solutions which have been brought in are from organizations like Apache Foundation. There is nobody who understands security better than the Apache Foundation. And that was the reason why I said those research organizations, I don't know whether I should mention the names or not, that's for Professor Moni sir to decide. When they are the ones who are under the hit list of, or the embargo list of the foreign countries. When they can use it, the security is proven. That was the reason why I had put that in the slide. Now, should I open up and then say which are those organizations?
I think, it's better not to tell about it, but we'll say that,
Yes.
security aspects are concerned, topmost concern are being addressed by
Yes.
various
For example,
consortium orders.
Linux Foundation, they are the ones who do the whole thing. They know more about security than Apache Foundation. INRIA, which is the French Mathematical Institute, they understand the whole thing. So the question that comes up is, just because it is open, it does not mean there are full of loopholes. No, sir, it is not. And the proof of the pudding is some of the research establishments in India are using it for production of subcritical items. Therefore, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and it is already being used to turn out quality and secure designs, and everything is including the NC code. It's the NC code keeps moving back and forth. So they are all secure and the network is secure. So there is absolutely no problem.
Okay, and Mr. Amarendra Singh and Mr. Keshav Tripathi, and we will take it up and we'll discuss with you on this issue, and security aspects are being taken care of,
Yes,
and it is not an issue, and it is an important issue, but it is being taken care of.
Yes.
That's one I'd like to convey, and with this, and I would like to thank Dr. Suhas. Before that, I would like to summarize what we have discussed, so far for the benefits of the audience. And this international webinar series, initiated by the Soviet Institute of Engineering and Technology, a deemed university, which has set up 4 centers of excellence to bring in technology to the rural area. One is on Center for Agricultural Informatics and E-Governance Research Studies, which is first in kind in India and in the world, to train, retrain, and reskill of the agricultural science graduates and also non-agricultural science graduates, to bring back to agricultural sector through digital technology in agriculture. Second center of excellence is agricultural business management and disaster management studies. Third is Center for Informatics Development Solutions and Applications. Under this center, that's called CIDSA, this open source digital technology towards self-reliant India is being organized. The objective of this center is to bring in appropriate human resources for informatics and e-governance programs through standards. The fourth is Center for Industry 4.0 Technology Studies and Applications. So these 4 centers of excellence of the Soviet Institute of Engineering and Technology based in Meerut is completely, towards rural youth to bring in technology. So I'm very happy that Dr. Suhas, he has addressed from Boston today early morning. He is addressing from 2 a.m. onwards. And thank you, Dr. Suhas, for your interest in the subject. Since we know each other for more than 3 decades, we worked in National Informatics Center. We are the products of National Informatics Center, and NIC is our alma mater. and as a scientist and as a technocrats, we lived up to our objective and mission. And under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, as our Honorable Prime Minister announced, with 5 I's: intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, innovation. This open source technology for self-reliant India is very important. Even though the movement has started 2 decades back, and the time has come that 4,500 engineering colleges and 18,000 non-engineering colleges, IITs, IIITs, NITs, central universities, engineering discipline, non-engineering discipline, have to put their mind together to make Indian open source tools on the ground, online. And this has to be the top priority. We had a lot of experience, from the open source tools which are developed outside, but operationalized in India, taking into consideration, taking in the vast experience which we got it, now with the youth, which is available in all 4,500 engineering colleges, 18,000 non-engineering colleges, that it is a time under Atmanirbhar Bharat to design, develop, and operationalize, bringing in all features of software which are needed, that we have to bring in India under the human consideration, human value of Ubuntu. Ubuntu means we are living together. We have to live together. So that is the meaning in Africa. And Ubuntu is a fantastic, word which gives different, gives an important meaning to us. So this is very important. Second is that you touched, almost all aspects of, the product of open source tool, which National Informatics Center more than 2 decades back started working on this CollabCAD, and you are one, among the brains worked on these open source solutions, and it is standard based. And it is an important thing that which you have very nicely said it, that this product should be made available through appropriate human resources development to all the MSMEs. There are about 3,500 urban clusters of MSMEs and about 20,000 of rural clusters of MSMEs, and more Khadi and village industries. If Industry 4.0 have to be successful in India, which has been, being talked about, being promoted 6 years since 2014 onwards, but these industries needs to be tapped with Industry 4.0, and this is where the importance of product like CollabCAD, which is developed using open standards, ought to be made available. And you have talked about the concern very much, that you also made a plea that National Productivity Council and MSME and the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology have to sit together to make this product available at a subsidized rate to universities like the Soviet Institute of Engineering and Technology, which has taken an initiative in Industry 4.0, and to all MSMEs to operationalize this product for ERP solutions, MRP solutions, and computer-aided engineering solutions and e-commerce in a better manner. So this is a good plea, and which has to be given consideration under the Atmanirbhar Bharat program. To take now, we don't have to wait for development of another product which is available, which is well tested.
Exactly.
And in view of the security reasons only, we decided not to tell the name of those institutions, industries which are working in India, but this is operational, it is in use,
Yes.
and it is being used in higher, security industries, and why not for other MSME industry? That's more important. Second is that the Atmanirbhar Bharat talks about, among the 5 pillars, one is on strong demand and supply chain to be fulfilled, end-to-end solutions. So you also talked about end-to-end solution, engineering solutions for MSMEs, and how to develop human resources from the engineering level. So if these students has to be trained, if the institute center of excellence to be trained, the government has to subsidize. How much it will be subsidized? Let the Ministry of MSME, and it is headed by it is a most progressive person, Honorable Minister, Honorable Nitin Gadkari, and Honorable IT Minister, Prasadji, and they will be in a position to bring in this subsidy to this such products for MSME as a smart MSME. To give, if to give a historical perspective, I was invited by the Madras Institute of Technology, which is a part of Anna Institute of Technology, indeed, in 2005 to deliver a talk on, how to bring in, computerization MSME. I took the title Digital MSME, Digital SMEs, which is organized by the Professor Sentamarai Chelvi. That time she was the professor and the head of the computer science, and now he is Honorable Vice Chancellor of an university in Tamil Nadu. And I requested her that let us take one urban cluster of MSME in near Chennai. Let us work out that what is their needs for hardware and software for making those MSMEs as a digital MSMEs. And I'm very happy now. After 15 years, now we talk about Industry 4.0, and there is a product solutions for MSME, and it is the right time that we make MSME as a digital MSME. And also, I would like to tell that after, and I think 2008, Mr. Vikas Kanangu is another international consultant. He put this paper, which I presented in MIIT on the international his website on mobile computing. And 2009, Center for Agribusiness Management of RBI, they wanted me to write an abstract of this article to get published in their journal CAD newsletter. So I think it's an important area where MSME of India have to be brought under Industry 4.0, maybe with a timeline, maybe 1 year from now or 2 year from now, or it should be achieved by 2024. That is that timeline in which we have to work on it. Dr. Suhas, you talked about major challenges, and he said that data cannot be in silos. You talked about flexible management solutions, and you would like to see that how German and Japan have brought in Industry 4.0 in a big manner through flexible management solutions, and why can't we adopt such a flexible management solutions in India for this MSME? When I was asked that, Professor Moni, in your Center for Industry 4.0 in Soviet Institute of Engineering and Technology, that why you announced a postgraduate diploma program were only for MSMEs. I told him that there are more numbers, and many MSMEs are family-run companies, and they create traditional knowledge, and those MSMEs have to be trained. That's why the university has targeted MSME as the first target of bringing in Industry 4.0, which was agreed in a meeting which was held in the Department of Heavy Industries, wherein FICCI and CAI have also participated. So, and you talked about all the features of which we have to face, which are all challenges and opportunities when we go for operationalization of digital technology, open source digital technology in MSME. And two takeaways, which you said it. There is a product which is available based on standards with the high security features built in as a CollabCAD. It is a total MSME. You take this ERP, MRP, and inventory control and e-commerce. Train them, for which it has to be subsidized. And National Informatics Center and its open technology center based in Chennai can come forward to train the people. And then you also talked about that how the government of India tendering policy have to be tweaked in favor of MSME. It cannot be considered as on par with the heavy industries and big industries tender process. And this is more important. And and I also talked about that the solutions which National Informatics Center through CollabCAD, which is providing an ecosystem for an end-to-end solution. This is more important. Ubuntu is an ecosystem. With Ubuntu as an operating system, open source operating system, and CollabCAD can bring in complete ecosystems to facilitate flexible management, manufacturing solutions. In MSMEs, 3,500 clusters of MSM urban clusters of SMEs, and about 20,000 of rural clusters of SMEs and khadi and village industries. This is an important to make manufacturing as a service in an open cloud environment. So you also talked about training, retraining, skilling, and upskilling to make the engineering graduates as employer or employee through appropriate startup. So from my heart, bottom of the heart, I would like to thank you for making your time available and also to deliver a very wonderful, professional, technical talk to the participants, both in India and abroad, through the international webinar series on open source digital technology toward self-reliant India on open source software and industrial Internet of Things. Thank you very much, Dr. Suarez.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
I think there are a lot of congratulations coming from various participants coming from who are participating, and Mr. Balasubramaniam Pechimuthu, he tells that because of better security, because most of the research institutions like CERN, BARC are using open source software solutions, OpenStack Cloud, Linux, open source, and etc. So, Dr. Balasubramaniam, thank you very much for giving this remark, and here, to the audience, Dr. P. Balasubramaniam was the first talker in this series. Thank you very much, Dr. Suhas, and I would like to invite you to the